Last week we were talking about your camera and being able to get out and practice and use different modes and things. So today what I want to do is talk to you about the different modes. I spent a lot of time scared of manual mode and didn't know when to use it, what all the settings meant, and I stuck to auto for a long time. But then I realized it wasn't actually as tricky as I thought it was, so I'm going to talk you through those different modes now. So on the top of a camera, like my Z5 for example, you have got a dial, and on there are different modes. You've got auto, P, A, S and M, as well as some other user modes. And today I'm going to let you know what all of those mean. So first up, auto mode. What does it do? It controls your shutter speed, your ISO and your aperture. And the idea is that it will balance the exposure in your image and get it looking how the camera thinks it should look. There is a bit of control over this in that you can control what area of the image is being used for the exposure measurement and whether you underexpose or overexpose. But generally speaking, auto mode means that the camera is going to take control of those three main settings. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got manual mode, where you are fully in control of your shutter speed, your ISO and your aperture. This means that you have the most creative control over what is going into your camera and then coming out in your picture. But because you have this creative control, you've got more decisions to make. Do you want a fast or a slow shutter speed? Do you want the ISO to be high or low or somewhere in the middle? What aperture do you want? So it can definitely seem overwhelming. And kind of in between these, you've got your semi-auto modes, and this is where the camera will help you out. So aperture priority, you choose your aperture. The camera will balance the ISO and the shutter speed in order to get a well-exposed picture. Then we've got shutter priority, where you choose the shutter speed and the camera will adjust the aperture and the ISO to get you a nice balanced shot. And then you've got programmed auto, which is kind of just a little bit off of auto, where you set the ISO, the camera will set the shutter speed and the aperture. And the aim of this is that the camera is trying to get you a balanced shot. The fundamental behind this is the exposure triangle, which I'm going to go into in more detail next week. But basically it's where you can adjust your aperture, your ISO and your shutter speed in order to get a well exposed picture. So if one increases, another one needs to decrease and things like that. They all impact each other. So stay tuned for next week and we'll go into a lot more detail on what it is and what it is you can achieve with this. So if you're using aperture priority, you are controlling the aperture, which is the hole at the front of the camera where the light comes in. This can be big or it can be small. And as well as letting more or less light in, this will also allow you to focus more specifically on certain areas. So the depth of field, the amount that's in focus from kind of you to further away, reduces with a bigger aperture. So a smaller f number, a bigger hole for the light to come through, will get you that kind of blurred background and an in focus subject. Or you can go the other way and go up to something like f8, f9, where the majority of the frame is in focus rather than one specific element. So if you're taking a picture of a landscape, for example. And then shutter priority. This allows you to control your shutter speed. So what that means is you can have a very fast shutter speed, a very slow shutter speed, or something in between. A fast shutter speed will stop motion. It will just take a very quick picture and things won't have moved from the time that that shutter is open to the time that that shutter is closed. So it will be frozen in time. Or you could have a very long shutter speed. So it's open for say 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And in that time, things can move. So whether it's water, whether it's clouds, or traffic or anything like that, you can get kind of that blurred, soft look to water coming off of a waterfall, clouds in the sky, and that kind of thing. And then with programmed auto mode, you control the ISO. So you can choose the ISO, which is the best for your camera, for you in that particular situation. And then the camera can work out the rest for you. So ISO is basically a volume control for the light coming into your camera. The higher the ISO, the more it will boost that light up. And in dark situations, it will allow you to see more. But at the same time, as your ISO increases, so does the amount of noise and things like that in the image, which can be a choice. In manual mode, you may want that grain and noise and things in your image, but you may not. So adjusting your ISO, again, with programmed auto mode, the camera will adjust things around it. In manual mode, you'll have more creative choice. Each of these modes has their own particular place. Certain types of photographers prefer to use one or the other. For example, if you take a picture at a wedding, you want to make sure that you've got a nice narrow depth of field and that you're capturing the subject, the bride, the groom, and they're nicely in focus. You might want to blur the background a bit. So you might set something like aperture priority and have it set so that you know that the aperture is not going to change, everything else will change to compensate. But equally, this could lead to some blurring because the shutter speed might drop if it's particularly dark on that day. So these are the things that you need to take into consideration when you're doing that. If you're taking a picture of sport, for example, you might want a very fast shutter speed so that you catch the ball mid-movement, someone kicking, someone throwing, something like that. And that way, having that very fast shutter speed, the camera will adjust the ISO. It will adjust the aperture. So you may get more or less in focus because of what the camera's doing. So that's where manual mode comes in. You have the full control, and we're going to go step by step into this and go through it all one thing at a time. And remember, all of these modes are there to be used. You don't get bonus points for using manual over auto. Like I said last week, it's the same camera. You're going to get the same quality picture. You just have less creative control when it's in one of the auto modes. So as you're learning, that's what you want. You want the camera to be taking some of those decisions away from you. And then as you get more and more advanced, you may want to go to manual mode, but you certainly don't have to. So join me next week. We'll talk about the exposure triangle and how to put these things into practice and really get the most from being able to balance your scene, get the exposure that you want. Have a great week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.